But how's it been so far? Good day?
There
I
it
know
is.
it's been a long day. Thumbs up or?
I hope everybody
Okay,
had
in the
at
back
least-
row, I saw 2 thumbs. Like, okay, we'll try and improve that.
Yeah, so thank you for welcoming us to Kiev. I'm actually happy that we are able to speak in Ukraine. It's a good change for us. And what we want to talk about today is a change that has been happening over the last decade or 2 decades and how we can best confront this change. But before we get to that, allow us to introduce ourselves. So my name is Andrej Balaz. You notice that my name speaks of my heritage. I'm originally from Slovakia and half of my family is from Ukraine, so this is why I'm so glad to be here. My background is in service design, UX, and consumer research. I've been working for the last 4 years for a pretty large innovation consultancy in Germany called IXDS. We have clients from the mobility sectors like such as Volkswagen, BMW, and so on, and also a lot of startups. But this is a different thing, you will see in a second. And I'm sharing the stage today with my partner, Rene.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rene Bastijans. So my heritage is a bit confusing, I guess. First name could be French, last name could be Dutch, but I'm actually German, so apologies for that. But I now live in Lisbon, in Portugal. Ever been to Lisbon, anyone? Great, so do come over. It's nice weather. We have to see. Anyway, I'm a recovering product manager. Product managers in the house? Yes. Okay, I can't see much, but okay, I take it. So yeah, I was many moons ago, I was a product manager, then moved into corporate innovation, spending a long time trying to innovate and educate corporate about innovation and technologies. And for the last 3 years or so, I'm really focusing with Andrej also on consumer research, which we'll talk about in a moment.
Yeah, and we both are part of Revealed, and Revealed is a consultancy that helps companies and startups get insights into what creates demand for their customers, so how they perceive the market, and then use these insights for strategy, innovation, and growth. And this is also what we're going to be talking about. I spoke about the change, and Etienne already spoke about it as well. And it is that the era of easy wins in innovation and growth is over now. So back in the 90s and 2000s, you only, well, I don't want to say only, but you primarily didn't have to focus on having an innovative concept. You had to focus on different things. For example, the first question you had to ask yourself was, how are we actually going to make this thing? So it was a lot about having the right resources, the right skills, the right tech to be able to make it, to scale it, and so on. And the second question was, The second question was, how do you get it to the hands of the consumer? So it was about developing your sales channels, about distribution, doing your marketing right, and so on. Of course, these questions are still relevant, but more than ever is a third question, which I will talk about in a second, that has become more relevant. But I just want to, for the 2 points that I just mentioned, give you an example of Gmail. So this is a beta version of Gmail, and what you can see and why it is such a good example of how it used to be is that everybody knew that you kind of needed email in those times. So Gmail didn't have to ask themselves if there would be demand for email. So they just had to make email better. So what they did is they added 1,000 megabytes of storage space, added a conversations view, and all of these, I would call it low-hanging innovation ideas, came into what we call Gmail, which is still a successful product. But nowadays, things have changed. So Etienne also spoke about it, and there have been a lot of advances in technology, in software development, in cloud computing, in access to customers, so there are better and more scalable sales channels. And it has become easier than ever to build products such as Gmail. So for example, today probably a team could build that first beta version of Gmail within a month. But just as building products has become easier, so is being pushed out of the market. Because of course the competitors are not sleeping and they have the same means at their hands. So that's why the third question that I mentioned is more important than ever, and that is, what is the right thing to build, instead of like, how do we build it right? And for that, we believe it's important to understand how this demand is created for your product. So to understand why people actually switch to or away from your product. How are these dynamics working? And that's what we want to talk about today a little bit. But before we get into that, let's clarify just like a very base term that often is either misunderstood or explained in many words or too many words, and that is, what is growth? So for us, growth is basically just two things. It's either acquiring new customers or while retaining the ones that you actually have. So it's about acquisition and retention. You can, of course, acquire new customers by creating a new product and attracting new customers to you, or having a product already and do some kind of marketing to attract them, or you can retain customers by either improving your existing product or, for example, upselling customers to higher tiers of your product. So acquisition and retention, this is what growth is. So I think that's kind of easy to understand. Another second point, now that we have a shared understanding of growth, is that, and this is something that will be the core of the presentation, is that there is a difference between data that you can collect in your company for quality improvement and for retention, and there is a the second type of data that will be the data for growth, which explains you why people buy your product in the first place. So let's start with the first one. A lot of companies are already collecting a lot of this valuable data, such as engagement metrics, customer support data, feature requests, and so on. We call this all bundled as data for quality or data for quality improvement. And to get this data, you usually ask yourself the questions such as, I don't know, does our onboarding work well? Or do people recommend us? Is it engaging? Do people get through the funnel? And so on. So all these kind of questions are within that. And this is all good data for optimizing and improving your project, maybe incrementally, maybe radically in new ways, but it's still about what is. So you can, for example, use it to, as I said, improve your sales funnel to convert better, or change the way people interact with your product to change the experience and make it a little bit better, and so on. And this is all good, but when you only focus on data that comes from within the scope of your product, you run into the risk of having a very narrow innovation perspective, of course. You forget that customers see the market as a much broader field, and that they see a lot of the other products that are on the market, and they also consider these other products as options to get their jobs done. So they might not be even interested in a better version of your product. They might skip it entirely. And this lies, of course, the risk of missing opportunities. And just as I have implied, because you just talk to people who are related to somehow to your product, they already are using it or are in the same field, you also risk falling prey to the famous sampling bias, which is in research, it's a pretty well-known effect. And these opportunities will essentially, that lie outside, will essentially remain invisible. And this is why it's important that you also talk to customers who are not your customers yet. And also that you gather a new type of data, which we call data for growth. So as I explained, data for quality is basically how people use a product today, whereas data for growth, if you collect that, you will get insights into what causes people to buy and adopt a product in the first place. So you will understand why people switch from your competitors to your product, or why they switch from your product to your competitors, or churn, or why they become a customer in this new market in the first place. So maybe they are new market customers. That means they're suddenly doing something that they were not doing before. And all these behaviors and movements on the market you will be able to understand when you understand data for growth. And the types of data for growth is what Rene is going to be talking about.
He's not presenting. Because I would love to stay there and hit the key every time, but I've got this thing.
Yeah, I hope it works.
Technology.
I don't know.
Let's see. So yeah, what are these data for growth, right? That help us understand why somebody is looking for a product, why they buy it, why they may adopt it or not. And what do these data look like? Let's see. Nope. Oh, it does work.
But slowly.
We were trying to build this thing for these kind of customers, and we didn't really know what we're in business for, right? So essentially, our software allowed the customers to manage the entire life cycle of a surfboard. So once an order comes in, then how you produce it, how you distribute it, and then how you sell it. It's essentially like a big ERP, enterprise resource planning system for those corporate people, if there are any in the house. So a big, massive piece of software. But I wanted to understand actually what's happening. Why are our customers buying our product? because no one could tell me in our company. Why is this happening? And what is attracting those customers or prospective customers to come and reach out to us and asking us all these questions? Right? So I want to really understand what's going on. And so when I joined them, shortly after, I started talking to 20 or so existing customers that we had and also prospective customers. And so I did one-on-one interviews, mostly remotely, but also some in person, because our customers were all over the place. And we had really big surfboard brands, which I can't mention, but there's a lot of surfboard brands out there that were using our tiny company's software. And so the data I looked for, thank you, assistant. The first kind of data that I looked for is called unmet desires, and I explain what that is really. Essentially, these are kind of experiences that surfboard manufacturers want to have or avoid, but can't at the moment, right? So it's kind of it works now, Oh, yes. Great. Or to describe a future state that a surfboard manufacturer wants to be in. Sounds all theoretical. I explain what that means actually in real life. So, for example, some of our customers, they told me, look, I want to become this leader in our surfboard category. We focus on high-performance surfboards, so not like you can buy in a shop. So they want to really be the top brand known for professional surfers. And they express desires to me and say, look, I want to know where in the production line these surfboards are. Also, I want to know and be able to predict the capacity, how many boards we can actually build per week, because they couldn't at the moment, right? In order to get to their ambition or their vision to become the number one in their area, they wanted to know all these things and these desires, right? Then all of these kind of desires are essentially innate human desires that we all have and we all crave. And here's a small number of them. Control, for example, would be one, knowing where the surfboards are in the production line, or recognition is being recognized as the leader in your particular business. Another one is competence, so people gaining a new skill in order to get to where they want to be. Yes, thanks. But want to become the leader in a particular category doesn't necessarily cause our customers to buy our product, right? So this desire to become the leader was caused when they had this desire, but something was blocking them. Something in the company, something was missing. They couldn't get to this vision without some help. And so it was blocking the progress. And again, one of the biggest blocker, and I'm sure everybody knows, because everybody's working with Excel, right? Who's working with Excel still? Okay, still a fair number. Oh yeah, great. I feel for you. So this is actually a photo I took when a Portuguese customer of ours showed me how this person was trying to manage multiple boards that were coming with one order. So let's imagine there was a surf school or a surf shop that calls up or comes in the shop and says, look, I want 20 boards, right? Here's the order. And then so this manufacturer was struggling or trying to understand how can I best move these board orders around as the new orders come in. Right, so you can see, should be able to see. So he was literally telling me, by drawing on this paper, look, there's a new board order coming in. I need to move this to the next week because it's more urgent and so forth. So we're really, really struggling to make progress there. Thank you. The other constraints are habits. And I guess we all have our behaviors and rituals that we've developed over many years, and it's difficult to change a habit. Right? Or it's anxiety. So lots of our customers and also prospective customers actually predominantly told us, look, I don't know you guys. I don't know Shaper Buddy. I have a business here. Will you be around in 5 years' time? If you go bust, what do I do? Right? So a lot of anxiety is holding them back to actually subscribing to our product. And then kind of the third data point that I was looking for was catalysts. Catalysts, these are kind of events, that happen in our lives that trigger us to cause some action. And somebody's saying, look, I had enough, I need to make a change. Okay, and they give energy and urgency. And what that looks like, for example, is they can intensify desires, they can create the constraints, or as I said, trigger action. I was going to tell you this. So for some of our customers, you see here, so they literally were losing business. So because they realized they're losing surfboard order. So in Excel, somebody, for some reason, deleted by accident or who knows, a surfboard order, and that was gone. right? And the consequence may be that a customer calls up, say, look, where's my surfboard? Or where's my 10 surfboards that I ordered two months ago? And they can't deliver. And so obviously they cancel the order, and that's lost business for us and as a surfboard manufacturer. But these are kind of the events that really triggered them to say, look, we have to stop this. We need to change somehow. We need to find something that's better than Excel and better than how we currently work. And Shape a Body used to be a solution that they considered or were actually buying. So besides these unexpected events, board orders getting lost, or customers just calling up randomly and say, look, I want to cancel my order, there's also more expected or anticipated events like deadlines. I think everybody knows what deadlines are, right? So you have to do something or achieve something by a certain time. And with deadlines looming, that triggers us to, of course, take some action. Another kind of catalyst is word of mouth recommendation. So I'm sure that if somebody today recommends you a product or service, or some other solution, you may want to look into this. So there's really kind of these little triggers that can help you to cause some action. Or I'm also positive that everybody's got an experience with a product that didn't work well. So some negative experience with any product or solution can also trigger us to say, look, this is enough. I can't do this anymore. I need to change and look for something else. So when all these kind of three elements come together, the unmet desires, the constraints, and catalysts, they'll help you explain why somebody starts to wanting to change and why they're starting to look out for solutions, And thank you. So then you want to understand when, why somebody wants to change, right? That can give you some ideas on how you can make changes in your product, or you create a new product to attract more of these people, right? And you can find, therefore, growth opportunities for our company. Thank you. And at Shape a Body, thanks to my research, we understood that surfboard manufacturers make basically progress in 3 stages. But I think it's also applicable to other businesses as well. The first one, because it's about surfers and surfboard manufacturing, I try to give them surfboard terms or surfing terms like paddling, pop-up, and riding the wave. And the first phase, turning professional, I call it like this, is when somebody is a professional surfer. Obviously, they're very good at surfing, but they have an itch. So they say, look, I want to be able to create surfboards myself and create my own brand and, at one day become this factory and be rich, right? So they want to turn professional. The second stage, which is the pop-up, when you're pedaling, you're just trying to get into stands. You have already a factory, you have some employees, right? That can be, obviously tricky in itself, but you have boarders coming in regularly, and you just want to get better at producing them. And the third stage here is scaling. So usually our customers in the scale phase, they had already multiple factories strategically positioned across the globe, like in the Philippines, Bali, but also in Portugal, where it's affordable to build or to hire people who can build surfboards, right? But so they will just want to get better and scale, so produce more surfboards and sell the hell out of it, right? These are roughly these 3 stages that our customers kind of fall into. Oh, sorry, I was a bit too fast maybe. But also, from my research, we knew that kind of the desires, so, the first stage, turning professional, then kind of up to scale, so the desires change over time as new constraints, so blockers are introduced. For example, when I'm here at the first stage, I'm a kind of professional surfer, I want to create my own brand and my own surfboards. I can't reach the second stage where I actually factor because I may have limited business or tech skills, right? So I'm good at surfing, maybe shaping, but in order to run a business, you have to have some business skills, money coming in, money going out, and tech skills. And for these guys here in the second stage of a factory, in order to become a bigger player in the market, what usually is keeping you or holding you back is you're understaffed or you have actually no funding really to build another factory somewhere. Okay? So we knew that this is going to happen. Okay. And so with this knowledge that our customers' progress happens kind of in 3 stages, and also that the desires and the constraints change over time, right? We ask ourselves questions. So how can we know when somebody is ready or when they're about to move in this next phase or stage? So we ask ourselves questions like, how can we measure so we know if somebody is turning professional, right? How would we know this? Well, secondly, what should we change or introduce to help somebody evolve from in this second stage on how can we measure if somebody is kind of running the risk of losing control of their business because they're losing orders or whatsoever. And thirdly, there we go. What can we measure to see if the business soon needs scaling? So these are questions that I kind of triggered within our team. And then with these questions, we began to create some metrics and put them in perspective. So any metrics that we can then track over time that would tell us, okay, we need to action here. We need to change something. So for example, when we know that someone who is a professional surfer and he's constantly producing more board orders because they're all in our system, we can see how many orders they produce a month, for example, or a period of time. So when we see that the board orders or the number of customers that they're gaining are increasing, then we know, okay, this person may soon need help scaling into or moving into this kind of more professional setup where they have a factory and some employees. So we can reach out to them, help them do that, and so forth. And the second kind of metric or another metric for the people in this factory kind of stage is if we know or we can see that some of the board orders are continuously delivered late, then we know they're in trouble, right? So they're losing control, and we can then interact with them and help them out. And here for the people at the scale stage, if we know in the system that they're getting more bulk orders, so multiple surfboards in one order, like we're talking, 20, 50 plus surfboards in one particular order, then it happens over time, like 6 months or a longer period, then we know they are on a good track. We need to help them do a good job here. And so with these metrics, I spent some time and figure out, okay, what does that mean for us? How can we use this and these insights to actually create some growth opportunities for us, right? And so one thing naturally, so we know if people are struggling and people were actually struggling with our software in itself, we developed some training materials to help them become better users of our software. We also looked at pricing changes. I'm losing water. Sorry, I've been drinking a lot today, but clearly not enough. So we also figured out maybe we should introduce some pricing changes because we're offering one price per board, so you pay $1 per board for everyone. So people who are just starting out to the big guys. And so look, we know that the numbers of produced boards are different. We should charge differently, right? And also I knew what other softwares they were using and paying for them. So I had some intelligence and I said, look, the pricing isn't right. We need to make some changes. And thirdly, which was a really particular tough one because we had one product, as I said, ERP type, so a really massive piece of software that we thought would fit all, but it wasn't relevant. If I'm in an early stage, I want to turn professional, I don't need distribution channels, this kind of setup. I don't need all this. So I thought, look, maybe we can split up our product into 3 distinct products that all together work as a system that we can sell separately. So someone who's starting out, he gets the product A, and then somebody in a kind of factory or second stage, they get product B, and then the scaling people, also on top of that, they get product 3 or C. Right, obviously controversial because if you build one product, how do you split it up? So well, it was a good idea, I thought, and I think Intercom actually did that themselves. Familiar with Intercom? The messaging service, very popular, very successful, lots of funding, lots of actually revenues. They did the same thing. They had one big one big piece of software, and they broke it down, and by kind of stage, if you want to call it, that customers are in. And so I believe that before, the old way of us working in the office and on our product was, looking at the product, making it better, right? So getting rid of the bugs, introducing some new features, usually features requested by customers, and I'm sure we're all familiar with that. People calling us up, emailing us, look, you want this feature, please develop this feature. But basically to please them, also get rid of them because it was very annoying asking us for features all the time. And then also we were building one solution that we believe fits everyone, right? And obviously that's not helping. And I felt like we are caught in this trap, right? In this loop, infinite loop, also just chunking out features, improving day in, day out, right? So quality thinking, essentially, that's what we did. And I wanted us to get off of this treadmill of constantly just working on improving the quality because we were a startup, we can improve the quality, but we already have the customers. When we need to make money, we need to grow, i.e. increase our revenues if we want to survive. So, thank you. The new way, after my research, what I helped us adopt is like a new focus on customers and on growth, right? And across the organization. So I try to encourage my colleagues, my developer colleagues, my sales colleagues, and the CEO and CFO, of course, to adopt this growth mindset versus just improving the quality. Okay, and of course we needed to improve the product because it wasn't the most user-friendly one, I'll tell you that. And anyone who's using SAP or Oracle type of services, they may know the pain, right? But we also needed to do this so we can deliver progress to our customers according to their stages and at the same time create growth for our business. And I believe with my kind of research, we were quite successful with adopting at least the mindset. That should work.
Okay, so there was a lot of content, but we would like to summarize what we have learned, and maybe we should improve the quality of this thing. And so what are the takeaways? First of all, know the question that you're asking. Like, really think about whether you're looking for just improving what you already have, or if you are at a moment in the product journey where you might want to explore what is beyond and have a different set of insights, and of course, different set of data that you might need for it. And for data for growth, look for motivational data. So look why customers are switching, what are the unmet desires, constraints, and catalysts, and what is causing the desire to change to come up, what is propelling it, and why are they actually considering to move on. Because in this lies a lot of information that will help you to kind of create the right relation to the data for quality that you're already collecting. We saw, like, for example, a very good shaper body example there is that you can connect metrics and understand the stages of progress that people are going through way better when you have this kind of understanding of people's motivation. And of course, you can use it to create new additions to your product and create that growth. But so we don't stay just theoretical, we are also doing a small, sorry for that, interviewing workshop back in the, where, how do you call that place even? I don't
Lounge
know.
Or the coffee
around
break
the corner,
area.
Where the food was as well in the beginning. We will try to interview one of you, or if there are no volunteers, each other, but we will definitely find a volunteer, I'm sure, and show you how one interviewing method can help you get these desires and catalysts and constraints on the surface, and how you can collect this kind of data in addition to what you're probably already collecting in your companies. So thank you very much for your attention. If you want to get in touch with us, please visit this website or find us on Twitter as well. We are pretty responsive, I would say, or just talk to us here.
Exactly. So we're going to be here and also at the Drink About. Okay, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
And now obviously there's questions, right? So if you've got any questions right now, we've got some
interesting part. Questions, please, guys. Who will be the first one?
Can we ask questions?
Sergey!
I'm not sure you're allowed to ask questions.
Yeah, I've seen that before, Jessica said, and I was much better prepared than you. You may step. Just.
No, it's fine.
Okay, yeah. I was just like, don't want to talk to you and you stay like that and shine.
Well, that one change here.
The interesting part of that is always like saying, when we are starting something, yeah, there are two sides. Once we have an existing product and we want to collect data for growth, how to get this data for growth in this product that we just about to start, because we don't know if it's gonna grow at all.
So you're asking if you have a concept or an idea for a product, how do you go about it? Yeah, it's a good question. So this is also the second type of what we do. So we look at existing products that may be out there for a long time, and we want to try and understand how we can help our customers grow their business. But also we look at new concepts and prototypes, or even storyboards, right? So customers of ours or clients of ours, say, look, we have this idea, we've got this feeling that this may work. Can you help us figure out if we can create the demand, which is called create someone or cause someone to potentially buy this product, if we can trigger this, right? So we do that, and we literally do the same thing. So we talk to them, they give us maybe a list of people that we want to talk to, or we just do, go to different services and ask for people who have used something recently that's kind of competing or it's similar to this product and try to understand what happened in their lives that caused them to buy this competing product, right? And if you say, well, ours is so brand new, this doesn't really exist in the market, I can tell you there are solutions out there. It doesn't have to be like your product or like your idea, but people are getting, well, I don't know what to use the jargon, but people are doing, what am I saying? People are using solutions out there in order to get to the progress that they desire. But it could be sometimes just a phone call, or I hire, a consultant, or I hire a freelancer. These are competing with software solutions. So competition doesn't have to come from your own product category or industry. Competition comes from anything. It can be anything that your existing or prospective customers are using today in order to get to where they want to be, right? Cool.
Okay. Yep, please. One moment. Micro.
Hey, so you had this idea of going through the stages of customers, and on one of the previous talks, it was mentioned that it's better to be different than to be better. So what I see sometimes is that customers, it's rarely that you're talking with somebody who hasn't used a competitive product, or sort of. So what happens is that they're usually in the middle of between two things. One, they don't want to change to anything that's not going to be a leapfrog because it's not worth it. And on the other hand, they're biased, so they are looking for something that's very similar to what they use. So are there any patterns or ways to get over that, to actually get them on your side? Like, get them from thinking that they need the same thing. Yeah, make them switch.
Regardless of whether they have habits, existing habits that keep them from wanting to actually do the switch, but at the same time they have desires. Look, I know I can't work like this. I need to change somehow, but I don't really want to do this change. Is that the question you're asking? How do you get?
I mean, that would be a question that, like, the answer there lies, of course, in the solution space, let's call it like that. So you have to do something to your marketing that addresses them and pitches them that your product is so much better and it is a leapfrog, right? That's what you would have to essentially do. And for that, you need that kind of knowledge from people who might be, switching or have already switched. So you can actually see, there are a lot of people who are in these kind of situations, and maybe this doesn't work with them. So I think, like, for your question, that will be basically designing a prototype and testing it with these kind of people of your marketing or whatever strategy or activity you want to employ there.
But yeah, thanks. That was actually a brilliant idea. Focus on people who have switched.
Yes.
I mean,
I was going to say, sorry.
Yeah, we usually interview people who already have gone through the process, because they already have gone through the pains of that process. Because when somebody hasn't switched, then they usually wish for the perfect solution, which costs less, does more, looks prettier, and is also available, immediately. When they have switched, they usually went already through comparisons. They did the trade-offs necessary, because nothing is perfect, And when you talk to those kind of people, you really see a little bit better what actually matters, how long it took, did they go back and forth, and so on and so forth. So it's a better, let's say, a participant to talk to. They have a better story.
Yeah, thanks. Brilliant.
Okay.
One more question? Two?
Someone else? No one.
Maybe I...
Yep.
Yeah, so if you wanted to it's only going to be a short one, but we're going to demonstrate how you can interview someone, talk to someone to get to the data that we just described, right? To, how that would work. And we can do it, just now in the lounge or coffee break area. If you're interested, follow us, and we sit down and we demonstrate, and we can even pick one of you to volunteer.
Just a conversation about your last purchase. So that's the idea there.
Or you can also obviously stay here and listen to Tanya's talk, right? That's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.